So in this demonstration, we're going to add a new method to a standard table using a table extension class. Specifically, we want to extend the sales line class to include a new method which finds returns sales class records using an input rec ID. So of course, to start out, we need to have admin, we need to be running as administrator, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new class. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on this DB Fleet Management. We're going to click Add and New Item. And I'm going to go ahead and select Code over here on the left, select Class. And I'm going to go ahead and name this new class. I'm going to call this DB Class Extension Demo. And it's important, since this is a class extension, it has to have this underscore extension naming convention, or else the system you can't compile. So I'll go ahead and click Add, and we've just added our new class extension. And so there's three things that are really important when we're doing this. First is we need to modify the class to be final. So we do this because the extension classes should not and cannot be extended. This makes sense from an architecture perspective. A hypothetical second degree extension class in the same model would be illogical, as the code would be folded into the original extension class. Secondly, the class name needs to be postfixed with the underscore extension, so the compiler knows that this is an extension class. If we tried to compile this, it would fail. And then thirdly, we need an additional special attribute for this declaration, and basically indicating what this object is extending. So basically we would need to have a set of brackets with extension of, which is the method call. Then we would give it the name of the object we're extending. So we'll take a look at what this looks like here. So I'm just going to go ahead and start typing this in. First, we need to have our brackets, and we're going to say extension of, and then we need to say what we are extending. So this is going to be a table. And then in parentheses, we're going to specify the table that we are going to be extending this, and then we'll go ahead and close our parentheses and bracket. And then next, we need to mark this class as final. So we would go ahead and put final, and then our public static class. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in our DB class extension demo underscore extension. All right, and then I would just go ahead and save this. So now that I have the proper class structure, it doesn't do anything yet. So we need to add our extension method. So in this case, we can just add it to the extension class as a normal method, and it would be added to the table standard methods at compile time. So as I mentioned earlier in this course, we want to create a method which takes an input of a rec ID and returns a matching sales line record if it exists in the system. So I want to declare my method as public static, and then sales line, and then DB find sales line by rec ID, and then we'll give it parameters of rec ID underscore sales line rec ID, and then Boolean for update, which is a flag most find methods use to indicate if the record being selected is going to be updated. So the reason we've declared the method as static is because it is expected to work without an instantiated table object. So we'll now need to write code that actually selects this record and returns it. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this code in here, and we'll take a look at it. All right, so I have some code here that I just pasted in. And as you can see here, we are selecting the sales line record in update mode if the caller has indicated for an update. So we have our if for update, and then we have then we're going to find the correct sales line record and then return the correct sales line record here. So now that we've done this, I've already performed a save and build. And then what we want to go ahead and do is we want to test our code change. So in order to do this, we need to create a runnable class. So I'm going to go back over to my project here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to add new item and I'm going to select runnable class. It is important to note that these runnable classes have replaced jobs in previous versions of Dynamics AX. So we'll go ahead and name this. And I'm just going to go ahead and name this DB sales line extension test. And I'll go ahead and click add. So that'll now open in the designer, and you can see here that we have our class, and then basically all we need for a runnable class is we need to set this public static void main and then args as our method here, and that creates our runnable class. And so now basically what I want to do is I'm going to put in some code to test this. And so in between my brackets here, I'm just going to go ahead and type in my code here. So sales line equals and then we'll do our double colons. And we want to find by rec ID. And then we're looking for this specific one here. And then I'll go ahead and close that and add my semicolon at the end of this line. Then we can go ahead and save this. And then what we would need to do to actually test this out is I need to, of course, set a breakpoint. And I would also need to set this runnable class as my startup object. So I'll go ahead and right click on this class and I'll set it as my startup object. And then if I have multiple projects in a solution, I would need to right click on the project and then set this as my startup project as well. I can then go ahead and put a breakpoint in this new method. And then we can go ahead and run this.